to dive into some other topics. Last episode, we talked a lot about kids programs, about using your dojo in the off times, about ways that we can just utilize the space and try to just give people some ideas on things that the three of us have done over the years, for good or for bad, to try and improve, whether it's membership or just, help offset the rent early on, whatever. So in this episode, what do you guys want to talk about? Yeah, I mean, common things we talk about are
about all the the biggest thing going on is about people talking about the demise of the art going forward.
Demise of what art? Demise of ice
You didn't get that memo?
There's a demise?
You didn't get that, and how do we continue to keep the art growing? And what are some of the negative things going on surrounding the art that are bringing it down or not helping it grow?
You know what's bringing me down?
What's
That you
that?
keep backing up from that microphone. So stay right there and stop shifting around. Right.
How's it sound? That sound better?
That's
Okay.
damn near horrible, but we're going to stay with that. So yeah, I mean, there's been some great things, and I absolutely love what Aikido Journal did recently.
Oh yeah.
I mean, right? I think we've all talked about that. Josh is doing some really great things. I think the survey was very telling.
Yeah, very eye-opening.
I mean, I kind of felt like it was spot on. I agree. It wasn't like I saw that and said, "Oh my God, this can't be." It was like,
Right.
for me, and I mean, I'm not trying to be negative or anything, but it made a lot of sense and actually made me feel good to know that not that the art might be in trouble, but made me feel good to see that people are being so forthcoming and honest. Because, I mean, there's not a lot of places where that can be done, and for him to put that together, I think it can be helpful to all of us if we do something about it. So what do we do? What do we do? How do we fix this? Glenn.
Right, here's what you do.
All right, hold on. Let me get my note out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of we talked about in the last episode we talked about how online there's a lot of good information but a lot of bad information, and the same thing with bad talk and bad lack of a better way to say it is representation of the art as well. That puts a sour note in the eyes of the public.
All right, so, it's just the three of us talking. Nobody's ever going to listen to this, right? So,
I barely am listening.
so, I think let's talk about it from a Dojo Cho perspective. I'm trying to think of how can we make this helpful, right? So, we all know people that don't practice Aikido.
Right.
When you bring up the word Aikido, what does the majority of people think? How about we start there? What do people think? Do they know what Aikido is?
No.
No. And I don't mean like they don't know it, like we know it. I mean, do they even know?
No, not at all.
Okay, yeah. So if I put a sign outside my door that says Aikido in 6x12 lettering,
Right.
I'm good, right? Like I got no worries. I'm gonna fill that dojo up, and life is good.
They're gonna think you're a flower shop.
What was it? Somebody asked me if there was. Isn't that Japanese dog?
Yeah, that's
or
what
something?
I was saying. That Akita's a dog, right? Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and for the record, my mother still thinks I do Aikido. So, I'll just throw that out there. It's been,
Well,
30
on our
years.
sign, and exactly to that, the sign on our dojo says Aikido, but it says Family Martial Arts Center. I mean, does it? It's Aikido of Scottsdale, but that means nothing to the public.
So, I mean,
things like that, I agree. Yeah.
Branding is a big part of this problem, right? So we, and back in the day when I had Aikido's instructors organization, one of the first thing we would do is when we would consult with people is say, what is your sign? And so many people just had it. They're like, man, I spent a lot of money on this sign. It says Aikido. I'm like, okay, what is that? So they're like, oh, of course, it's a martial art. But people don't know that,
Right.
I mean, hell, like you own a CrossFit gym, I own a CrossFit gym. Half of the people don't even know what CrossFit is, and CrossFit could not be any more popular. So we do have to do a little better job of branding and get away from, I feel like I don't know what drew you guys in, but one of the things that drew me into this art was the tradition and the culture and all those great things. But one of the things that I feel personally hurt the art is those things that drew me in.
Right.
Because they get in the way, and there's almost like these unsaid rules, like you got to have Japanese kanji outside on your sign that nobody can read, right?
Right.
I mean, those things, and you all, I know you don't have that. I know you don't have that. I know I don't have it. But I feel like maybe we have to get the message across, starting there with what are we telling people? What are we advertising? Are we saying, hey, Aikido class is 6 days a week? Okay, what's that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
What do you think?
Yes.
All right, next question. I don't get many yeses. So.
And I think, and I don't want to add too many more problems to this situation.
This could be an hour or two, so we're going to keep it short.
But I think another issue is some of the people who they're too purist about it. And they think you have to have the Japanese kanji on there, and you have to act this way, and you have to teach it this certain way. And we have to understand that it's 2019, and we live in a certain culture, in a certain context. And if we're not speaking to that culture and context with their language,
Right.
we're not going to get students in the door.
So, I mean, maybe you're just speaking a different language. And then what I mean by that is even with your branding and your message and everything you're putting out there is maybe it's just not the message that's clicking with the population. Maybe they don't understand the message you're putting out there, right?
Even the word, like you said, do people know what Aikido is? And what I was thinking while you were talking is, do they even know what martial arts is?
Well, I mean, say the word martial art.
Right.
What do you? What
Right.
what is the average person?
Karate or taekwondo or
Martial arts, or let's go in the other direction. They're thinking cage fighting and
Cage
MMA,
fighting,
right?
right.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Right,
you
right,
have
right.
you have every side of that spectrum. But for some reason, I would dare to bet a lot of money the average person wouldn't throw Aikido
Well, I was gonna
anywhere
say,
in there,
right,
right?
yeah, right.
So you're talking either competitive cage fighting,
Right.
or you're talking maybe karate or taekwondo. But then what falls in the middle? And that's where we kind of are. We're kind of in the middle, right? We're not really known on either. I mean, we're known to some, obviously, but not as well known as we would like. And we can dive more into that. But maybe getting the message out. We're in such a great time right now. I mean, if you look at the 90s, it was so hard to get a message out. We were printing flyers. We were going door to door. We're doing demos for 5 people. It's we're setting up booths. It's all this stuff. And I'm not discrediting any of that. That all helped build my dojo, build your dojo and yours. And it all worked. And I mean, but the times have changed. Now we live in a society where social media is king, and people are making a decision based on what you have to offer in about 15 seconds. And if they see something they don't like, they are not going to pick up the phone, and they're not going to call, and they're not going to come see you. And it doesn't even, here's my little pet peeve, and I'm censoring myself so hard right now so we can keep this podcast as not explicit, but I'm probably going to curse, is that somebody else is hurting your business. Somebody else is hurting your dojo. Because the first person that looked and saw Aikido and Googled Aikido, and maybe something came up that was not a good representation of the art, is now hurting you if your message isn't out there. So you're not just competing for yourself, but you're competing against every bad information out there. Everything out there that isn't really Aikido or maybe is not doing right by the art is now could be hurting you. So it's there's so many factors out here that I think we have to do a better job.
Well, I think it first starts with the branding, like you said, and what message do you want to put out there about your brand? And if it's about tradition and about the meditation and the relaxation, and that's what you want to promote, and you're
nothing wrong with that. I'm 100%. That's awesome.
Reflecting that in your brochure, your website, your all your communication, but a lot of Aikido dojo also talk about its effectiveness for self-defense, and that's one thing you hear is like you said, when you say a martial art, Aikido doesn't come to mind, or self-defense to the public, Aikido doesn't come to mind. So if that's what you're trying to brand, then your website, your communication should reflect something that reflects self-defense.
So the
that
message has
that
to be
speaks
consistent,
to the public.
right?
Right. Then you go to the website and people are
Like,
moving around in skirts and in.
Nothing wrong with that.
Is that wrong? No.
no, it's not wrong.
And some are wearing hakamas. but the public doesn't understand. They just see people wearing these outfits
it's
and
all
sitting there holding each other's
confusing.
and
I
it
think
doesn't.
the longer we do this, the more you become desensitized to some extent. Like you can
that's
say,
bad.
and that's a bad thing.
That's
I think
bad,
as soon as you start losing touch with what does the new person go through? What does the person walking through the door go through? Now, that's something that's been talked about before, but what does the person go through that clicks on your website for the first time or sees you on Facebook for the first time? What is that person thinking? So, I mean, it used to be, what is the first impression when the person walks through the door? Now it's, what's the first impression before they ever get to your door? Like, they're never even going to get to your door because of that one thing they saw that turned them off. And the fact is, when you start a new activity of any sort, I feel like you're always looking for that excuse not to do it. You know, part of your brain is saying, oh, wait a minute. I didn't know we'd be doing that. Maybe I don't want to do this. I mean, no matter how much you might be into it, part of your brain is trying to see, is this really a good fit? Because I'm a little intimidated. I'm a little scared. I don't know what's going on here. There's people flying in the air. This guy looks like he's in pain.
Yeah.
I mean, I love when people post pictures of like Uke dying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, thank you very much. Like, that's completely going to kill my business, but thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's not a place for that, but maybe that's not a great representation of what we do. We kind of live in this spectrum of either maybe things are a little too brutal or maybe things don't even look like a martial art anywhere.
Right.
And we don't know why people are coming in. Like, again, we talked about in the last episode about goal setting.
That's what I was going for. Is
Not
the
everybody
why.
wants self-defense, right?
Right.
Not everybody's coming in to defend themselves. You know, maybe people are like, hey, I just want to move around, and I haven't moved around in years, and this looks like it might be a good fit. That, I think, is the beauty of Aikido, is that it's something for everybody, but how do we get that message across?
convey that?
How do you tell everybody?
So I was talking to someone the other day about every teacher has something that they want to give back to the art to push forward. And every student who walks in your door has something they want to learn. Those two things don't line up. They never will. Sometimes they'll have where they do. But there's always going to be a little bit of, well, I want this, but you're offering this.
Yeah.
And I think it's incumbent upon the teacher to really make sure that they're figuring that out. You know, for me personally, I try to provide an atmosphere where someone who wants to come to learn movement meditation can come to my class and get a lot out of it. Someone who wants
if I came in for that,
they can get that out of it too.
let's say I came in for that and I conveyed that to you.
I had a student started 2 months ago who completely conveyed that to me. I don't want to do cage fighting. I don't want to fight. I just want to learn the movements. I'm really interested. They look really cool to me.
Are you able, as an instructor, to cater to them when they're on the mat and make sure they get what they need?
Absolutely.
How long did that conversation take you to have with this person?
Not long at all. He started with the 10 class punch card and he finished it and he signed up for another one right away because of his schedule. But he's in. Like he loves the classes. He told me.
I mean, maybe that's part of it. So if we're all right, so there's a couple of different not problems, let's say challenges. So challenge one is perception, right? And there's a lot of information out there, like we talked about. Not everything is a great representation of what we do. But what your website is and your Facebook and your Instagram and whatever else should be a representation of what you really believe. And it can't deviate from that. So if you, all right, so, you know, and this is an old thing that I used to say in consulting all the time is, and I know some people aren't going to like it, but I don't think most people are going to like any of this. So anyway, that somebody flying through the air might look awesome to us, but it might look like the scariest thing they ever saw to someone else. And I've said this for years, is that, and believe me, I'm just as guilty as anyone else. Like, I mean, those shots are great. As Aikidoka, we're like, yes, you know, like this looks badass, you know. But to the average person, who doesn't want to get injured, and that looks impossible, and I haven't worked out in 10 years,
Right,
and
I
I've
don't
been
wanna
sitting
do
on the
that.
couch,
Yeah, right.
and I have bad knees, so I can't be sitting on my knees like that. Like, right away, I've gone through and made 10 excuses. So if we really want to tap into the greater group of people, and I mean, like, I'm all for BJJ. I'm all for any martial art.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do.
Absolutely.
Right.
I am 100%. If I lose a student to another martial art, as long as they're doing a martial art,
Yeah, right.
I can sleep with that.
I
But when they
tell
quit,
people coming to my class, go watch other martial arts.
sure.
Pick which one you feel the most comfortable with, a teacher who's going to teach you the best and you're going to learn from. Because I don't want a student on the mat who's not going to learn, who's going to stop because of those fears.
Definitely.
Then it's not a right fit.
Definitely.
You know?
So, I mean, I think we're all on the same page. We all support anybody doing any martial art. We would like them to do Aikido, but I would rather them do something rather than nothing.
Right. Yes.
So that's great. With that said, we have to do a great job of understanding that we really have a huge opportunity, I think, in this art. A huge opportunity. Because if you look at the average person, and we looked at like the entire demographic of just people that might do martial arts, not everybody's going to do BJJ. That's going to appeal to a very big demographic, and I could be completely wrong here. I'm pulling this out of my ass, but it feels like a younger demographic might be drawn to that. I don't know how many 60-year-olds are going to walk in and be like, sign me up today, right? And any place I've seen, I haven't seen a lot of older people. Now, I could be wrong. Go ahead, send your hate. But same thing on the other side of the spectrum. I might be intimidated by certain aspects of karate. Maybe not. Maybe I don't understand that either. Aikido could appeal to a greater demographic
Right.
if it was done the right way.
Right.
I think we missed the mark on that. Collectively, I mean, we, just as an art, I think sometimes we can maybe miss that mark just with our message. As simple as, what is your website saying? What is your social media saying? And then what's happening when they walk in the door? You know, is it a welcoming environment that is super beginner friendly, or is it a group of diehards that, for as wonderful as the instructor is, maybe the students don't necessarily like new people. Maybe they do. I don't know. I'm just drawing every scenario I can think of. How can we make that better? How can we capitalize on the fact that this martial art, I would dare to say, is probably one of the more accessible ones to a wider demographic. And we all know that we have people on the mat that are definitely older, right? But I mean, how old were you when you started? You can't remember back that far, right? I mean, that was a long. It was.
17.
And when was that? In 1917. So. I'm just
Can we put
kidding,
this
man.
on hold for
No,
now?
no. So you were 17.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 20.
All right, I was 19. Right, so we all started around the same age,
Yes.
right?
And we would be considered young.
We would
Aikido
be
prac-
considered by
very young.
today's
Very
standards.
young.
We would be children. I
Yes.
mean, like young
Yes.
children, because I don't know about you guys, but most of my people that come through the door, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yes.
30s, 40s, 50s, and like top end of 30s. I'm not talking like 31. I'm talking more like 38, 39. Nothing wrong with that. I love that. Maybe you get younger people.
Lately, in the last year and a half, I have had younger adults, and it's been noticeable.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But
In general, that's
it's not the norm.
Yeah,
And if
yeah, it's not the
we
norm.
went to any big seminar and you just did a census,
right.
like just walk around. How old are you? How old are you? How old are you? I mean, this would be a very easy problem to solve very quickly. And like we said earlier, like with Aikido Journal, I think they address some of this, is that the population is aging. So the good is the people that are doing Aikido are sticking around for the most part and aging into the art.
Yeah, it's the influx.
The influx of those 20-year-olds that we all loved. I mean, did you have a lot of young people when you started?
No.
When you started when you were young?
At the beginning?
Yeah,
No,
in the beginning.
at the beginning, yes, there was a lot of young.
There was a lot of young
Right,
people on the
yeah.
mat. What about you?
Yeah, same.
All right, I had a huge crew of guys all about 20 years old who we all trained with in the exact same fashion. Like, we all trained hard.
Yeah.
We were all bonded because we were similar age group.
Right.
There were still older people. There were younger people. But we had a very hardcore group. Regardless of how we trained, that's irrelevant. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about age. So that's not the norm now. at all.
Yeah.
So you have to say why. Why was it the norm then? Why is it not now? And so I mean, anybody could debate this and say, well, it could be a million different factors. What can we do though to change it? There are some things we can do, and there's some things we can't do. There's some things I think as Dojo Cho we have control over, and then some we just have zero control over. But what could we change?
Well, I think part of it you said earlier, where, in general, the older student.
When he seriously picks it up. So.
Well, now you can hear it. You were bitching at me. You couldn't hear it before.
That's right.
So I'm gonna. The older student is perhaps not looking for as much of the martial aspects of things because they might be more fearsome of injury, whereas the younger student is more attracted to these other more harder styles or aggressive styles because that's what. So you said the beauty of Aikido is we could offer both, but
how do we convey that?
How do we convey
how do we get that
to
message
the younger?
across?
Since the demographic we're trying to attract is the younger.
Sure.
Then maybe that component of Aikido that we've been talking about is missing in its
Let's
message.
play devil's advocate, because somebody might say, why do we need younger people?
Who would say that?
I don't know. But I'm trying here. Come on. I'm trying to be very like...
And you're right.
Right,
There
Bill.
probably are people who would
If
say
you need
that.
to hold it, but...
But that's just...
I mean, longevity of the art.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think
but I
it's a
mean,
discredit.
somebody out there might say, we don't need the young people. We're doing just fine with our demographic. Not me, but I'm just saying, let's, I mean, I would love to address everyone's concerns here. Somebody might out there might say, you know, I like having older people on the mat. I mean, for one, like we talked about this, what are the perks of having older members in your dojo?
They don't move.
They don't move. Their payments don't bounce.
They pay their dues.
I mean, but in all honesty, you know, like to keep the dojo going,
yeah.
they tend to be very reliable. They tend to get involved with the dojo. A lot of times they're the first ones to step up and be
Right.
the
They are.
backbone
Right.
of
They
the
are.
dojo. I know that
They
my
are.
oldest students are my
Absolutely.
best students. I know that if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, these guys would step up
Absolutely.
Right.
and they would take care
Right.
of things.
Right.
Not dig in on the 20-year-olds. We need them. But I'm just saying that we need both.
Right.
We need them both. If we're, you know, and I use the tree analogy all the time, but, you know, the tree might look healthy, but if we're not getting new life on it, it's dying. If it's just staying the same, it's dying. And when you step onto a mat or you go to a seminar and it's all black belts, you shouldn't be like, yes.
Right.
Like
Right.
part of you should be dying
Yeah,
and
what's
saying,
wrong?
what is wrong here? This isn't good.
Right.
When your dojo is all Udansha and no Q rank, don't be happy. Say this is a problem. We are now in a mode where I have to figure this out. We have to figure this out. Bring your people together. Try and get the best minds in your dojo and say, look, this is what we're dealing with. How are we going to address it? If you're not capable of doing it on your own, reach out to other people. And I'm not claiming to have answers here, but I'm saying I think we have to recognize that there is an issue and it's not getting any better.
Yeah.
I mean, does anybody think it's getting better?
No.
No, it's not. And again, I think it goes back to the culture and the context issue, and especially with, and it's, of course, it's hard for me as a 40-year-old to speak for teenagers and 20-year-olds. I do have the benefit of having a wife who's 10 years younger than me, and that really does inform my opinion sometimes because
Should we work that in? Just,
whatever. She's also the first image on my website throwing someone.
Good for you, smart man. You're
right?
very
like,
smart.
You know, it looks good because it's a young woman throwing someone over her. Jerry, props to
Oh,
you,
nice.
Aikido Dallas.
Jerry, my man.
You know, so but from what I see, there's a kind of distrust of hierarchy. Maybe they wouldn't say that, or organization in general in our culture. And so a lot of what we offer is about community and hierarchy, and people are in control of you because they're higher ranked. So if you don't set the atmosphere in your dojo, or you have an atmosphere in your dojo where everything's so regimented that when they walk in the door, they feel like they're being crushed right away,
Well,
it's just going to drive them away, you know?
Yeah.
And so you talked about being welcoming, and the membership has to welcome new people. Like I know in my dojo, I'm sure it's the same way in yours. If it's someone's first day and we bow in and I show a technique and we pair up, my black belt over here is going to run over and work with that new student right away. And if they don't, they're going to be in trouble.
Which is phenomenal. But what does the majority of what do most beginners say when they work with an advanced student?
That they feel they're holding them back.
Oh, look at that. It's like we're so connected.
And that's such bullshit. I'll throw out
It
the
is
expletive.
bullshit.
It's
No,
such
I already
bullshit.
blew it with.
I mean, we know that, like, we can speak to this. We work with people well below our rank every day, and hopefully our Aikido is getting better.
Well, but they don't see.
But
it
it's
that way.
perception.
Right.
Again,
Yeah, right.
it might just be another part of this issue that, and I mean, I've heard it forever. I still hear it to this day, is that I don't want to hold anybody back.
Right.
I don't want to hold anybody back. And you know what? It hurts your soul. But when you hear something repetitively and you're hearing it across the country between Arizona, Texas, and New Jersey, then obviously it's an issue, right? We're not saying it's a demographic issue. It only happens on the East Coast. This is a real thing. So when you bring that person in and you get the highest person in class, highest ranked person, and you know they're super dependable, and you bring them over and say, take good care of them, even if they take the best care of them, that beginner could still say, I felt so bad. All I did is hold this guy back. Yeah. So we have to, and I have no solution for this. Actually, I have Jack. So I'm just saying,
I mean,
it is an issue, and it does come up.
You could, and there is some educational philosophy here, Vygotsky's scaffolding. Sometimes people react better to someone who's just slightly above them than they do who's way above them.
Yeah.
So if, a newbie watched me do a technique, they may not get it. But if they work with a third cue or a fourth cue,
which is probably a white belt,
right.
That now it's less intimidating. You're not in a
Maybe,
black belt,
yeah.
not in a Hakama, and now that person
may
is
be
still
more
qualified
relatable.
to help with a basic technique, but now you've taken the intimidation factor out of the equation.
So I'm saying right now, admitting on camera and on audio, maybe I should be better about assigning a third or a fourth cue to that person and make
It's
sure.
hard because I do the same thing, though. I'm like, you want to give them the best.
Right.
You look around your
Yeah.
room, and you're
Yeah.
like, who's the best person with beginners? And it's usually a black belt.
Yeah.
And then you're like, especially for all of us, we've had dojos for so long, it's like we're lucky enough to have Yudansha in the dojo. Maybe not everybody does. But, like, I always default and be like, well, I'm going to go right to him because he's so great. But maybe that's not the right answer.
Yeah, good point.
Maybe that's the wrong answer. I love the idea of, like, maybe just going to a third cue. And if you don't have that third cue, maybe even a fifth
Yeah.
cue that's been around just, for enough. And, like, what should that beginner be doing anyway? Should they be doing something?
Doing what you're doing. Hey, just focus with some.
Wait a minute,
back
that's
rolls
okay?
with this.
Aren't the Aikido police going to come and get me and lock me up because you can't change technique
Oh
on
my
the mat?
gosh.
Like, is that
I
possible?
say this all the time. Like, hey, I just showed two ways, and I'll go over to the newbie. You just do the one way you saw.
Or do it a different way.
Do it-
Just
yeah,
do
yeah,
it
just
like
move.
this. Just learn
Yeah.
this.
You know what? I
stuff.
think it's
So
all
that-
about giving that person one-on-one attention.
Yes.
And I hate to bring up CrossFit again, but it's the same kind of thing. It's like, you get that person
Scale
that
it.
walks through the
Yes.
door. You're scaling.
Yes.
You're scaling the movement.
Right.
You're scaling
Yes.
the technique.
Right.
I think if there was more scaling of technique and it was like, hey, look, this is what we're going to do today. And this is what you're going to do. It's the same exact thing. We're going to do, ski nikyo. You're going to do iham nikyo. It's the exact same thing. It's just at your level. So you're not going to feel like it's too hard. And then that way we're all doing essentially the same thing or building on the same blocks. Like, if we could get that message across and do it better, I think maybe people might have a better experience, maybe stick around more. But I mean, we've gone and we jumped forward. We took student X and put him in the dojo. We didn't get him there yet.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
yeah,
We're
well.
Okay, so
keeping-
why
we're
don't we
trying
go
to keep 'em
backwards?
there, Right.
I mean, once we get them there, I'm confident from the dojos I've visited, and I've been to quite a few, is that I think people could probably keep them once they get them there. I think the real issue is there's two issues. One, and again, like, probably not going to be popular, but just the nature of the art and the wonderful things that we love about it also deter people
Yeah.
because it's
fake.
very hard to feel like I'm getting anywhere. It takes a long time.
Yes.
And like,
Oh,
I love that it takes a long time. I absolutely, when I was 20 years old, I loved the fact it took me a long time. Now, having a dojo for over 20 years, I hate that it takes a long time
But
because
20-year-olds now don't want a long time.
No.
They want
Yeah,
we
instant,
go back
they
to-
want it on
no,
the
and
Jackson
I'm not
culture,
saying we
right?
should
Yeah.
make it instant, but I am saying that, like you said, the art needs to evolve. And I'm not saying to change the art, but maybe change the way we go about doing some things. We want to preserve what we love, but we also want to make it so it's still around. And like we could get so set in our ways that we say we're not changing anything, and we all know where that leads. That's
Right.
you know, we're not going to evolve. We're going to die, and we're not going to have much to talk about. And there'll be a handful of dojos, and we'll say about the way
good
back
old
the good old
days,
days when there were so many dojos and they were all doing Aikido, and we had these big seminars, and we had all these friends in other organizations. That's in danger unless people step up and start maybe bringing some new ideas to the table. And I know that that's happening, and I see pockets of it, on the internet, so it must be true. So I see pockets of it out there happening, and I see some really cool stuff happening. And I'm not trying to discredit, I'm just joking, but there's some really, really cool stuff happening, and some people 100% recognize it and are going after it. I think it has to be more of a movement rather than one or two people. And like even the three of us, we're not enough to make this happen, But I do think it needs to be talked about. And like some of this is just taboo. Like you don't talk about it,